Hi, it's Michael and Anthony here presenting Small Business Banter. A healthy micro and small business sector means a successful economy and a more vibrant society. Small Business Banter is about helping regional business owners better prepare for the current challenges, but also for the next stage of business success. I'm Michael Kerr, founder of Kerr Capital, advisors to business owners. Each week, with Anthony Turner from the Small Business Mentoring Service, we'll interview a different small business expert or a fellow business owner and get them to share their best tips and insights for you, the listeners. Small Business Banter is brought to you from the studios of 104.7 Gippsland FM and is heard across Australia on the Community Radio Network. Thanks also to our supporters, Kerr Capital and the Small Business Mentoring Service. So on today's episode of Small Business Banter, terrific to have in Sam Marwood. Sam is the founder of Cultivate Farms. I'll get you to tell us a little bit about yourself, but welcome in, Sam.
Thank you, Michael and Anthony. Pleasure to be here.
Nice to have you in. Anthony Turner from the Small Business Mentoring Service, co-host of Small Business Banter. Welcome.
Thank you, Michael, and hello, everybody.
All right, let's. I'm just going to talk very briefly about what you do, Sam, and then hand over. But I do love we love what you're doing. So, Cultivate Farms is essentially about matching farmers who have a farm with wannabe or newbie farmers who aspire to be to take on their own farm. So, I think you're dealing with those that are smaller scale farms in the main. But how about you give us a couple of minutes on what you do?
Well, we did think about calling it eFarmony, but knew that it was too corny and too expensive to get the URL. So it is a matchmaking service, and we are about bringing farmers together and investors around the concept of owning a farm. We started this because my dreams of ownership were squashed when my parents said, "No, you're not getting the farm." So I went and did other things, and that story happens everywhere over Australia. There are people in skyscrapers, or used to be in skyscrapers, now working from home, that would love to own a farm and be a farmer, but the capital is too much. And unless you inherit, usually there's a pathway to own your farm, and unless you're going to inherit, it's not possible. So people do other things, and that was my story. And starting this with Tim and Tegan Hicks, the co-founders, is how do we make ownership possible for the next generation? And we've realised it's through matchmaking, and we work with those farmers who have been working on farms, know how to run farms, know how to make money, but just don't have the $2, $3, $4, $5 million needed to buy a farm. And we've said, well, there's retiring farmers out there who want to share ownership and would love to share ownership. And there are investors out there, so people with money in the bank looking to invest in good projects that they could invest into local farms.
Okay, so we're talking about in broad context. Are there thousands or tens of thousands of these farm opportunities potentially available?
I think there's something like 80,000 farms across Australia. So that's our potential market. The idea of sharing ownership, though, is full on for many families. They've got that legacy they want to maintain for a long time. So sharing with someone else is tricky, but there are so many others who think this is an amazing lifeline and gives retiring farmers the opportunity to age on farm, stay and be part of their legacy. Even when they are slowing down a bit, they can bring or keep a young family, for example, in the community and offer them ownership and help them to build their wealth at the same time.
So traditional farm ownership has been, very much familial, as you well know. But do you find that is now changing where because a lot of the kids in the bush or on the farms want to get away from the farms? They've seen what all the hard work is, the long hours, and why the hell would I want to do that when I can have a latte in Collins Street or whatever it might be? There's that element to it, but there's also that that family heritage thing which you touched on before, where people are sort of adverse to sharing. So how is that dynamic changing, do you see?
For us, we're not here to tell anyone what they should do with their farm in terms of their legacy. If you want to hand it on, you've got family to hand it on, fantastic. That is a beautiful thing. And it's happened for generations, families handing the farm on to the next generation. Beautiful. But we're just saying there's other options. And there's so many farmers out there whose family don't want it. As you're saying, kids just want to go do something else. It's like saying a doctor, they need to make sure their kids become doctors. It's not a real reality. People have different desires and wants. So we're finding there are farmers out there that this gives them new hope that they can stay on their farm and realise their legacy even when their kids don't want it, and they can share with someone else's family that they trust and love just as much. This is about finding people you get along with. But it's also a relief for the kids. We've heard it many times that, we're so glad you're here because my parents really want us to have the farm and we just don't want it. And we can't figure out how to tell them that. So we love the idea we could help foster in some other family that will support them, but sort of takes the pressure off us having to take on the farm when they don't want to.
Sure.
Yeah. What's without that intervention, if you want to call it that, what happens to those farms? Do they just sit idle and the owners get really down and out?
I think it's a real productivity issue. Everyone talks about the age of farmers getting older, and the reality is you slow down and you're probably not pushing the farm from a productivity point of view, even environmentally as well as you probably could be. So it's probably a productivity issue for Australia that if we aren't helping those older generation farmers to find people around them to farm at the level that they would like to, it's probably a big issue. And we say that our job is to find great matches so these farms can be operating at a really high level. And and the Australian government and the farming industry want to, it's $100 billion or something is the target in terms of revenue they want to generate. And if we can support the older generation, we can really make sure these farms are producing well and supplying food to the world.
Sam, a lot of farms run on traditional methodologies and things like that, and obviously the world's changing with technology coming into farms. I remember doing some work in the Gippsland area a few years back now, where we were looking at apps, and there was literally thousands of farming apps that were available now that to help with productivity, which you touched on before. And I guess a lot of the older generation farmers are not that conversant with technology. Some are learning, but a lot are not. Do you see the opportunities here for the more tech-savvy wannabe farmers coming in and maybe helping to provide that sort of bringing the farms into the 20th or 21st century and things like that as real opportunities for maintaining the productivity, but also the longevity of farming in Australia?
I think so. Like, I've been in the tech sort of startup world in ag space, and I sit off to the side a little bit in that we're not about a whiz-bang gadget that helps with productivity. We're about ownership. But I always say to those tech people, hey, you need us to succeed so you can get more farmers utilising your technology. But I also recognise that farmers across Australia are all entrepreneurs, and they will jump on opportunities as they see they are useful and viable. I think the issue probably with tech and farming is that who's wearing the risk is probably the biggest thing that we've seen. That if you're trying a new tech, everyone's saying, why aren't the farmers using this? Well, it's they're the ones that have got to keep their business going. And if they're trying something that might fail, that's a massive risk. So I think farmers will jump on technology and do jump on technology so quickly. Probably not as fast as the tech people want it to happen, but they are really good at it. And I guess that's
it's the same across all industries. It's tech is usually ahead of the curve, and there's a good reason for that.
And there's usually a fear factor about making those big changes as well.
Sam, in terms of one of the things I do follow the content, the prolific content you post, and when you match, can you talk about a couple of the examples of where you've matched a farm family with a new owner, and also the extent to which there's a transaction, but there's also looks like you encourage an ongoing relationship so that the existing farmers can mentor the new farmers. I'm really aside from the transaction, I'm also interested in that ongoing relationship. So through you just chatting about some of the deals that you've worked on.
And I guess the core of this is that we do focus on ownership. And if that's not what both parties are on about, we we don't encourage them to continue the discussion. And ownership is such an awkward discussion, especially with farming, as we've sort of touched on already. So we first say make sure it's about ownership and that there's going to be some sort of transition of the land or the business or both for both parties, and make sure your values are aligned. And from there, so many good things happen. It's business. If you want your business partner to be someone you respect and get along with, and that's exactly what we're encouraging. So probably one example recently was up in Gundawindi, a daughter of a couple who have a farm have been following us for a while, and she reached out and said, look, I think this is what our family needs. And we'd love to get someone in to share farm. So it's a sharing of the business. And her mum, I think, was really okay with it, but her dad was very skeptical and got their accountants to check if we were a fraudulent business trying to rip them off somehow, which is fair enough. And so he was a bit skeptical, and we found a farmer. They got to meet each other. They met each other a couple of times, did a couple of weeks getting to know each other. And the daughter's now said that, and I haven't actually spoken to that gentleman, but she said he's got a whole new lease of life now, and he's just running around the farm knowing he's got someone that he gets along with, who's going to share the farming load with, and is sharing the risk and rewards as well. And that is just now a relationship that they don't agree on everything, but they also knew they wouldn't, and it's just a conversation and then a mutual respect. And that's exactly how we want things to unfold: is take your time, figure out what you want, and then find someone that you get along with, and don't pick someone you don't get along with. Probably the thing.
Yeah, going into a business partnership, it is kind of 101, and you can, people tend to jump into, this is a great idea, let's do it, versus what you're saying, which is getting to know each other, and certainly not expecting it to be perfect, because if you want perfect in any business relationship, you're not going to get it. So yeah, it sounds like you're being quite realistic and in setting the scene for both parties to work out whether it's a good thing for them or not. And by the way, on today's episode of Small Business Banter, we are chatting with Sam Marwood, who's the founder of Cultivate Farms. Sam, the business you have, Cultivate Farms, there's 80,000 farms. It's an awful lot. So you're trying to matchmake right across the country. Is the scope of your business national?
Yes, absolutely. And international. It's going more international as well.
So how is that playing out? You're getting international investors coming via your platform?
Not yet. We will soon though, but we have farmers. So we know we've got an audience all over the world watching this, because what I do, and you talk about content, I try to pump out as much practical, useful content as possible. And I say to people, you do not need us. You need to be one waking up every morning trying to find farmers, retiring farmers and investors and opportunities to get on your farm. Don't sit around waiting for us. And that content is just universal. This ownership issue is a universal problem. And so we have farmers coming to us saying, can you help us out, work through these problems internationally? We haven't figured out how to monetize that yet, but we will. But we know that the focus on ownership is so key, and focusing on practical, useful content is the cornerstone of our business model. We want to prove that this is possible, and we want to give information for free so that more doors open, more opportunities come to us, which we can monetize at the other end. But we've been very focused on being as useful and practical as possible, because what we're doing is not, it's in some ways not new, but it's not common across the country.
I'm just going to chip in here, but and by content, you're talking about instructional videos, which you can see on LinkedIn and other. And I like the way you go about, getting back to nitty gritty of what it involves. So encourage those listening and interested to check them out. Anthony, sorry, I cut in on you there.
No, that's all right. I just thinking about there's probably a number of people who would be maybe have let's call them aspiring farmers, as distinct from farmers per se. And I was just wondering whether there is some sort of form of training supports and or guidelines and things like that you provide as an organisation to help those people upskill themselves ready to take on ownership in farms, and also what support services you might be giving to those farmers considering it, so that our listeners can get a better idea as to is this a right sort of move to get in touch with you from here on.
Great question, and one we've been grappling with. We do, to an extent, give that sort of guidance. We have an Aging on Farm document, which we're happy for anyone to have, which talks about why you would consider sharing ownership on your pathway to aging on farm, and just letting people know you can stay on the farm and share ownership and realize the vision. So we give that sort of guidance, but we're very conscious that we aren't financial advisors or real estate or legal advisors either. So we've got to be just that tightrope of giving enough guidance but encouraging people to think through it for themselves. But what we do really focus on is the aspiring farmer angle, or farmers wanting to scale and get in front of investors or retiring farmers. And we have a pitching template that is free to download off our website. Anyone can get it. And we do a program, a 10-week program to support farmers to talk themselves up, basically, because farmers are quite humble and good people that, it's hard to get them to brag about themselves, but that's sort of what we need from them, is to say, this is why I'm a good farmer. I've spent the 10 years working on a farm and getting my skills up. I know how to make money. I just need someone to back me. And so that's what we really spend a lot of time is those farmers who are now ready to get them over the line in front of potential investors or partners. So day to day, we don't get involved in the training courses or, farm operations or even getting jobs for farmers. We provide the carrot that, hey, it's possible to own a farm. So you should be out there picking fruit. You should be out there working on a farm, managing a farm, understanding the books. You have to be good enough, because if you're not good enough, no one's going to back you. So we focus on the carrot more than the how.
Yeah. I think one of the key things in that is it's just basic marketing, isn't it? I think every business owner, irrespective of whether it's farm or even a potential business owner, needs to be marketing their skills out to the wider community on an ongoing basis.
And that's it. And it's a big thing. Like the idea of doing a video freaked me out 6 years ago. And now I do them every day and, don't need to prepare. It just rolls off my tongue. But that's the sort of thing we want from our farmers. And it's an even weirder thing to say, create content. We encourage you to create content about wanting to own your farm and put that on social media so all your mates and all your enemies and everyone can see it. Like, that's a big thing, but super powerful at the same time, because unless you're out there, where's that random opportunity going to come from? People can only help you if they know what you want. So we really push creating content from an aspiring farmer's point of view, or using us to create content for them.
Sam, say I'm based in an urban area. Why would I want to be a farmer at this time? Are there really exceptional opportunities ahead?
If you're talking about the COVID time, I think it's a great time.
Certainly that, but just generally, because it's it seems like there's talked about $100 billion wanting to be produced by the ag economy, I think it was, but it entails also a move in many cases if you're going to run a farm.
I would encourage you to really think about whether you want it. So this isn't for everyone. I think even when the robots come, people are still going to want to know that the human grew their food, and also the humans are going to want to own the farms and run them themselves. So you're never going to get that out of humans. And there are people in cities that have that desire to farm. They just haven't grown up on a farm. So we would love, and I think this is what we're doing more of, but we'd love to encourage anyone who wants to farm to go for it, absolutely go for it, and to know that you're not going to own your farm tomorrow, but maybe in 10 years you could, and there's absolutely pathways to get onto your farm. We are heavily focused on people at the moment who have been working on farms or grew up on farms, but more and more we're getting people who haven't. And I love the idea that you can go from zero to owning your farm, and it is just through hard work and putting yourself in front of people who can open doors for you, and being strategic in jobs you take, and wanting to learn and working hard. So I think if you have that desire in your heart to own a farm, which is the bug we talk about a lot, bad luck, it's stuck in you. So now you got to try and make it happen. And that's what we talk to all the time with our farmers. They can't get rid of it for some reason, and they want to own their farm. It's like, well, you're going to have to burden that, which is a great burden. Carry that burden, which is great to have. But go for it.
It sounds a lot like, the broad small business market. There's people, farms are businesses, and there are good opportunities, and there are lots of businesses across the board owned by a generation that are going to be looking at getting out. And so it's but you're saying you got to roll your sleeves up, and you got to work in it. It's not sit back and take in the returns. There's been a lot of talk, and I think there's an AFR article yesterday about corporate ownership of farms, and what you're doing is probably at the other end, the smaller smaller farms, but job creation opportunities for individuals and families. Where do you see the that sort of corporate versus small scale farm operation?
It's horses for courses. Like, we're not anti-corporate farms at all. We've got plenty of ideas on how corporate farms can do some really interesting things to support their community. So definitely happy to chat with more corporate farming operations around that. But we are focused on the family farm, on the smaller scale farms where individuals can get in and invest. From anywhere from hundreds of thousands to around the 10 million is probably our range that we're talking about. So we're not here to say corporates are good or bad, and we're not here to say family farming is good or bad. We just want to see good farming. We want to see regional communities thriving. And one of my biggest fears is, and what I hate hearing, is when I hear someone saying that they're not living the life they wanted, and they have put mental barriers up around where they could go in life, and especially around a farm, saying, I didn't know I could own my farm, and that's all I want, and my family would love it. And you just hear that anguish, and you hear that disappointment that they can't get there, and that just makes me so sad. And all I want to say is, if you want this and you want it bad enough, it is absolutely possible, so go for it. So I think my focus is empowering those people who have that dream to say, it's not easy, there's no clear pathway, but it's possible if you want it. And whether that's in a corporate mindset or a family farm mindset, I guess we don't mind. A bigger passion is supporting communities and supporting good land management.
Yeah, look, I think it goes to the heart of our audience, which is regional communities, and where a farm isn't transferred successfully, it creates a lot of stress and pressure along the way within the family. You've talked about that a number of times, but it also, it's not a great outcome if that just sits there, and it's a lost opportunity. So bringing new families into an area through acquisition of a farm we should all be encouraging that, because they're the small business, including farms, are the lifeblood of those communities.
I agree, and we want to empower regional communities that you can be your matchmakers. We have a program called Cultivate Communities, and we want community members to be matchmakers. I want the accountants and lawyers and the supermarket, everyone who relies on these farmers, to stop complaining that no one wants to live here or the farms aren't being transferred properly. It's like, well, get in and you can be the matchmaker, and you can bring in investors, and you can encourage the retiring farmers to think about aging on farm rather than selling up and walking away. And you can attract the best farmers from all Australia to your community. The ball is absolutely in your hands. There's money floating around, sitting in bank accounts, looking to go in the share market when it could be invested into local farms. I am so passionate about locals getting on and doing this and attracting those farmers to make their community thrive.
Are there any particular hotspots, that you're seeing? Is it particular kinds of farms, or is it just across the board? Across the board,
like every community I talk to says, farmers don't want to share ownership, and we haven't seen these ownership transitions before, and no one wants to invest here. And then you dig a bit deeper and you hang around a bit longer, and there's opportunities everywhere.
Yeah, I think you're touching on something which is really important for all business people, whether that's metropolitan or town-based businesses or the rural things, and that is that mindset. Is that somebody once told me you can be part of a problem or part of a solution. You can't be part of both. And I think most people tend to be caught up in the why they can'ts rather than the why they cans. And if you can get people, individuals, business people, to start looking at those opportunities, be willing to look outside of the box instead of the traditional ways. And I think then that's when progress really, really hits into particularly regional communities.
Yeah. Sam, we're coming up to the end. Do you just want to give us, you're a business owner as well. So what have been the biggest challenges so far in getting to where you are today, and what are your sort of near-term plans for Cultivate Farms?
My brother-in-law said, why don't you sell something that people want? You probably make really good money. And start a bakery or something. And I realized that's a pretty good idea. But I think my passion is ideas and trying things a little bit new and supporting others with those sort of ideas. So I've enjoyed the challenge of getting something a little bit weird off the ground and seeing it hopefully very soon become a massive success. So the challenges there are, how do you create a marketplace pretty much from scratch on the buying and the selling side? How do you inspire farmers? How do you uncover investors? And how do you tell retiring farmers that they can share ownership? So all those are massive challenges. And I realized it's through content creation and case studies and swallowing my pride and just getting out there and asking and creating content. So the biggest thing I've learned, it's never been a better time to start a business, especially weird ones like this. And the power of the internet and social media and Facebook is just ridiculous. I don't know. You couldn't have done this in the 80s or the 70s, I don't think. So I'm just very lucky.
Time is right. 80,000 farms, and a lot of, like a lot of business owners, they're not necessarily on top of their exit plan. So for aspiring farmers, it is a ripping time. We've got to close up. Do you just want to shout out the website and just some of the resources, particularly the aspiring farmers might access there?
Yep, cultivatefarms.com. There's an aspiring farmer tab. You can download the template. You can sign up as a free member and have your face out there. So farmers and investors do look at the profiles. Retiring farmers, you can get in touch and have a confidential discussion around what you want. And any investors, the same thing as well. You want to back a local farmer, let's go for it.
Yeah, and you put a lot of emphasis on getting, that early stage of getting to know each other a bit, which I think makes an awful lot of sense in any business, particularly when you're going to be in business together, share farming. Hey, Sam, thank you so much for your time today. We wish you well, and we'll post some of those resources to the show notes, and go well.
Thank you, and all power to you. I love your focus on small business. Absolutely awesome. Anyone who creates a job is super impressive in my books.
Agree entirely. Good on you, Sam. Take care.
Thanks, Sam.
So that's all for today's episode of Small Business Banter. Anthony and I continue to be inspired by bringing you small business experts and other small business owners and hearing their stories. For any of the links, resources or information we've talked about on the show today, or to contact Anthony or myself, please head over to smallbusinessbanter.com, or you can find us on both Facebook and Instagram. Anthony and I would love you to tune in at the same time next week for another episode of Small Business Banter.